AAA games or hindi talaga tinatangkilik, boss. Pero to kasing IGN na to, boss, hindi naman to pang Pilipinas. Hindi Pilipinas yung focus ito na audience. And gumawa sila ng video about sa AAA games.
The video game industry is currently in the thralls of a paradox. For players, it could be argued we're in one of the greatest times for gaming. There's incredible breadth of choice across consoles, handhelds,
Pero yung
and
Wukong, sobrang ganda daw talaga ng Wukong, pre.
PCs made ever more accessible through gaming subscription services like Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. But from an industry perspective, things could not be more dire. More and more studios seem to be closing, original IPs are being scrapped mid-development, and vast legions of game developers, programmers, artists, and animators have been cut loose. To put it simply, the AAA video game bubble has finally burst. Across the past 2 years, over 20.
Halos lahat kasi gusto maging AAA eh. Kaya nawawala talaga yung awon ko. Meron kasing hinahanap talaga yung mga tao na hindi nila makikita sa AAA games.
1,000 jobs in the video game industry were lost, with a staggering 6,000 in
Bukas na ba
January
yun?
2024 alone. Over 30 video game development studios have ceased operations, including Arcane Austin.
Siguro yung may mga title, sikat pa rin naman, like Resident Evil, Elden Ring. Oo. Pero kasi, ang titignan mo dyan, boss, yung percentage ng dami ng AAA games. Tapos, kung ilan pa yung nag-e-exist ngayon, ilan pa yung sinusuportahan ngayon, at ilan pa yung magsusurvive in next 2 to 5 years, boss.
Volition and most recently Firewalk Studios. What's worse is this
Yung mga
trend
tao
only
ngayon, boss, play to earn na ang gusto. Siguro sa Asia. Sa C siguro, boss. Sa C, ang masabi ko talaga, more on, simula nung napakilala sa atin yung Axie, nahati na yung opinion dito ng mga gamer na gusto nilang maglaro at the same time kumita ng pera. Kasi possible pala talaga. Which is nung time ng Axie, marami nakapagpatunay nun. Possible talaga. Time ng Axie, time ng Mir 4 ngayon, nightcrows. So marami talagang kumikita, boss. And habang nai-enjoy mo yung game, kumikita ka. So rewarding siya at the same time, rewarding pa ng pera. Kaya sobrang ano talaga, boss. Kaso ang problema sa mga play to earn ngayon, lalo mmorpg, sobrang pay to win. Yung Axie naman, boss, sinasabi nilang hindi pay to win, pero pay to win yung Axie, boss. Kahit nung V1 pa lang. Kasi merong mga Axie talaga na tinatawag na meta doon na hindi talaga kayang patayin ng normal na Axie lang. Yung bibili mo yung pinakamura. Kahit sabihin natin ikaw yung pinakamagaling maglaro ng Axie noong time na yon, kung yung pinakamura wala talagang combo yung skill, hindi ka mananalo talaga sa meta teams. So para sa akin yung Axie pay to win pa rin, which is yun talaga yung magiging, yun na talaga yung trend ng mga pay to win, boss. Talagang, ng mga play to earn, talagang matik siya pay to win. Kasi doon din naman kukuha talaga ng budget or doon din kukuha ng liquidity yung token, boss, sa mga magbabayad sa game. Meron kasi talaga, eto, boss, tulad ng nightcrows. Yung mga collect dyan, hindi siya makuha ng mga whale lang sila lang. Makukuha nila yan ng sobrang tagal. Ngayon, play to earn siya. So pwedeng bilhin na lang ng mga whale yung mga nagfa-farm ng mga free to play. So yun yung talaga yung kinagandahan ng play to earn.
shows signs of continuing rather than diminishing. So how did we get here? Well, some analysts have concluded these closures and redundancies are a necessary remedy to companies having overextended themselves in response to inflated demand in the market during the COVID-19 pandemic. While that's undeniably a factor, that's just one of many issues that have been gestating for years within the AAA project bubble. Just 5 years ago, AAA projects' average budget ranged from 50
Saka naalala ko merong NFT game na AAA. Hindi rin naman tumagal eh. Alam ko nag-e-exist pa ngayon pero hindi naman siya totally tinangkilik ng mga tao. Kahit AAA game siya. Parang pinoclaim naman nila talaga na AAA sila na game na NFT. Pero parang hindi rin talaga nag-boom. Pagdating sa NFT, parang mas gusto pa rin nila yung side na mas malaki yung kikitain mo kaysa sa quality ng game.
to $150 million. Today, the minimum average is $200 million. Call of Duty's new benchmark is $300 million, with Activision admitting in the Competition and Market Authority's report on AAA development that it now takes the efforts of 1.5 studios just to complete the annual Call of Duty title. But it's far from just Call of Duty facing ballooning costs. In the same CMA report, an anonymous publisher admits that development costs for one of its franchises reached $660 million, with $550 million of marketing
Sobrang
costs
mahal,
on
no?
top, which makes it a $1.2 billion game. To put that into
Grabe,
perspective, Minecraft, the world's
Yung
best-selling video
$1.2
game,
na game na yun, boss, kailangan nilang magkaroon ng profit doon. Hindi dapat na hindi dapat na tumigil sila once na nakuha na nila, kung nabawi na nila yung pera. Dapat talaga kumita sila kasi business yan eh. Pero usually sa mga AAA games naman kasi pricey at may ending talaga. Resident Evil 4, nga halos 1 week ko lang yata natapos ko na. Tapos may iba rin kasi talaga yung ano boss. Basta para sa akin mahirap i-maintain yung AAA game kasi nga mahal siya. Mahal siya i-develop, tingin ko mahal din siya i-maintain. So kapag hindi talaga siya tinangkilik, kaya marami nagsasara talaga na mga studio ngayon.
Game of all time
Our
only
game.
broke $3 billion last year, and keep in mind that's what it made since it launched way back in 2011. The realities of these budgets mean entire publishing houses are massively overstretched and are now desperately facing the consequences. If their developers' huge projects don't make money immediately, they gotta go. Sega's sci-fi shooter
sinasara
super game
talaga
Hyenas was in development at Creative Assembly for 7 years, and just as it was publicly playable for the first time via alpha testing, it was promptly cancelled. The reason? Sega
Grabe,
preemptively
no?
concluded that Hyenas
7 years mo dinevelop tapos na-cancel lang din agad. Iba talaga may kalaro. O sa ngayon boss parang hindi na siya bihirang-bihira na yung player na mas gusto nilang maglaro sila mag-isa. Yung as in totally wala silang makakausap sa game, tatapusin na lang. Marami pa rin ganun. Pero boss, yung mga ganung game kasi, once na ma-reach mo na yung end, tapos ka na sa game na yun. So lilipat ka na. Hindi katulad talaga ng mga MMO na hindi matatapos yung game within 1 week. Kasi after nung quest ko naman yung story ng game, meron pang kailangan ni progress para maging pinakamalakas ka sa game.
couldn't make its money back. Blizzard's survival project Odyssey had a similar trajectory. Odyssey would have been the studio's first new IP in 8 years, and given the market's love for games like Minecraft and Rust, such a gaming titan should have undoubtedly made waves with this project. When Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard, though, the project was swiftly killed with little reason publicly given beyond inconveniences in switching engines to increase player count on the servers. These examples of the current AAA publishing cull reflect a deep-rooted fear to
Napansin nyo, ang daming indie game ngayon na sobrang ang daming indie game ngayon na sumisikat. Bukod sa ilan lang yung developer na minsan personal project lang siya, so hindi kakain siya ng oras, kakain siya ng pera talaga. Kasi kahit sabihin mong dinevelop mo yun mag-isa boss, may mga pwede kang gawin nung time na yun during development na pwede ka rin kumita ng pera. So nagko-cost din talaga siya ng pera. Bukod sa pagod, sa oras, magko-cost talaga siya ng budget din talaga. Makaka-apekto pa rin. Pero ang daming indie game ngayon na sobrang sikat.
An original, publishers perhaps more risk-averse than ever to stray out of their established IP safety bars. But even well-known IP that could be worth millions in sales and revenue is being left to rot. Despite owning Infamous, Jak and Daxter, Killzone, Resistance, and Sly Cooper, to name a few entries in PlayStation's sprawling dormant library, Sony CFO Hiroki Totoki recently claimed the company lacks enough original IP to consolidate itself as a true gaming powerhouse.
Indie ba yun?
What Totoki may mean is that Sony's older catalog of library IP does not fit the mold of what every publisher has been mindlessly chasing for the better part of the decade, the next big live service money printer. It's difficult to imagine much fanfare for a Sly Cooper reboot where Bentley and Murray are purchased to play, grand heists or season pass bonuses, and worlds are delivered half-baked instead of fully formed. It's undeniable that on some level the video game market has changed forever because of this live service model. New video games don't just have to compete with new rivals, but somehow find space in an increasingly crowded market dominated by decade-old titles like Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto Online, games which will continue to hold higher player counts than many of the best sellers of the last few years. But live service titles require investment of not just money, but also time to find their audience, neither of which was afforded to Firewalk Studios Concord. The crew of Concord's North Star will
never
naka-issue
pa nga dyan yung Game Awards, yung sa Wukong.
Fly again. The recent fate of Concord's Firewalk Studios serves as a microcosm for the increasingly bleak outlook for the next few years in video game development. Concord was Firewalk's first game, its baby in many ways, an 8-year development bolstered by a Sony acquisition and a reported cash injection of $200+ million. PlayStation reportedly believed it had the next Star Wars-esque franchise in its hands, but the game struggled significantly across both its beta testing period and launch, and was soon completely shut down by Sony just weeks after it was released, with Firewalk closed for business shortly thereafter. Concord's downfall happened faster than any other failed game of the live service era.
Don't joke about it.
Daming gumawa ng content dyan.
Just a decade earlier, though, a similar disaster was plaguing Blizzard's Diablo 3. The crippling Error 37 message made the game unplayable, and fans worldwide decreed the absolute failure to launch. Soon after, the game's real money auction house left players with a foul taste in their mouth that Diablo 3's reputation was roasting in the fires. Instead of abandoning it, Blizzard repaired the game, removed the auction house, and then fundamentally upgraded and evolved it to Diablo 3 2.0 with its Reaper of Souls expansion, finally cementing its comeback as a brilliant game. It's a similar story to what we saw with CD Projekt Red's hard-fought battle to win Cyberpunk 2077 fans back after a disastrous launch. If Concord's alleged $200+ million budget had been lowered and the project direction refocused as a spark for a new universe rather than a big bang, it doesn't seem hard to believe that it could have found an audience with some Blizzard or CDPR-like shepherding from Sony. Many projects akin to Concord could be the medium-sized successes they deserve to be if not for the financial corners these publishers find themselves painted into.
Endless rage!
And really, maybe some publishers should consider steering clear of these financial quarters entirely. Gamers are beginning to wane interest in these monolithic projects. You need only look at a top-rated games of 2024 list. While 2023's award lists were littered with AAA titles from 500-strong studios, 2024 show a revitalized hunger for a smaller, more independent spirit. Arcade machine throwback UFO 50, the Metroidvania-esque Animal Well, poker roguelite Balatro, and text-based pixel art adventure The Crimson Diamond are just some of the games you'll see appearing again and again on these lists. Despite their numerous differences, they share one thing in common: a smaller, more refined experience that recalls earlier eras of gaming where marriages of mechanics and storytelling were key through technological craftiness, rather than literal country-sized game worlds. The nostalgia they create for older video game generations are central to the heart of their creation. They just want you to pick them up and have a good time. The slow but increasingly clear pivot of video game audiences to a potential indie renaissance is a clear message to publishers that if everything is bigger and bolder, who possibly has the time and energy to play more than 1 or 2 games each year?
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
That's not to undercut the difficulty in getting those independent titles made, mind you. UFO 50's Mossmouth LLC team consisted of 6 developers working over many years, while both Animal Well and The Crimson Diamond share similar stories of being crafted by solo developers, Billy Basso and Julia Minamata respectively, over several years. Even a smash hit like Lethal Company started life as a one-man band developer Zeekers learning to develop games on Roblox before expanding his knowledge. All of these developers put everything they had over several years of their lives into creating these games, not in pursuit of money, but because of a passion. And this is why they don't need humongous worlds or 300+ side quests to tick off. These games all feel like lean enjoyment machines.
Ano kasi,
Feels like the top end
kaya
of the video
dinadamihan
game
nila yung
industry.
side quest sa mga ganyan kasi kailangan nilang additional gameplay ng game time do sa game nila. Kailangan nilang mag-spend ng mas maraming oras yung mga tao para masulit yung bayad. Pangalawa, mas mag-stay yung mga tao.
Is currently faced with 2 paths to choose from. The first is the status quo. It can continue to engorge on bigger budgets with impossibly open yet incredibly empty worlds filled with 80+ hours of content, about 10 of which have any meaning to its players, and or hopelessly pursue the live service train which left the station over 5 years ago with late passengers wondering why the money isn't rolling in anymore. These billion-dollar gambles could pay off, but it's seeming less and less likely every day. Conversely, companies could opt for a second path and take a page out of Julia Minamata, Billy Basso, and Zeekers' books, a wider breadth of projects, smaller in scope and scale, with a refined focus on gameplay mechanics and perhaps a return to older styles of video games long dormant. Projects where developers aren't afraid to make weirder choices and take some unexpected left turns lest they crash their $400 million ship into a mixed to decent reception and lackluster sales. Maybe studios, and more importantly publishers and shareholders, can remember that we used to play video games because they were fun, not because of their bigger than last year maps carpeted by denser, higher resolution grass that you walk across to finish another piece of side content that pushes you just 1 digit closer to that 100% completion.
This wasn't the plan.
No, it just wasn't the one we started with.
Speaking of which, congratulations, you've almost 100%ed this video. What do you think needs changing in the games industry? Do you want bigger games or more games?
Ang ano kasi dyan, boss, ang problema kasi dyan sa mga ganyang game, kumbaga, if natapos mo na yung game, wala kang tao na pwedeng angasan kasi nilaro single player yung mga ganyan, di ba? Madalas yan single player yan. Iba siya sa mga mmorpg na na pag lumakas ka, meron kang pwedeng angasan. Ewan ko para sa akin lang mga boss, parang ang boring na maglaro ng game na tinapos mo mag-isa, then after nun wala kang makausap na tinapos mo yung game. Kumbaga walang makarelate sa'yo. Hindi katulad talaga ng mga simpleng game lang na maraming player, ganyan. Lahat ng pwede nyo pag-usapan within the game is talagang nakaka-relate. Kahit ako, pag natapos ko, ganun talaga eh. Pag 100, kahit ako pag natapos ko yung game, Minsan kasi may mga area na hindi mo pa na-explore pero tapos na rin kasi. So hindi mo na rin ako sa akin na magkakaiba naman tayo. Hindi ko na rin ina-explore basta makita ko na yung ending okay na ako dun. Ikaw bossing ano mas trip mo laruin? May time na gusto ko maglaro ng single player pero majority talaga multiplayer. Dati naman talaga ano yan eh. Kumbaga pay to play dati. Yung mga videoan pay to play yan eh. Kaya mas pero depende talaga. Siguro dito sa sa C. Sa C kasi talagang gusto naman ng mga tao may mga kalaro eh. Nakakalungkot na maglaro ngayon ng single player. Siguro o baka tumatanda lang tayo pre. Hindi ko alam kung ano yung pakaramdam ng mga bata. Pero siguro tayo kasi tayo yung mga nakaranas talaga ng wala pang internet. Ako, naranasan ko internet PS1, PS2. May mga kalaro ka dyan, madalas kapatid mo lang, pinsan mo lang. Hindi siya katulad talaga nung marami ka makakalaro araw-araw. So, hindi ko alam kung may epekto sa edad. Hindi ko sure. Tingin nyo.